All right. Today's Daf Membeis from my calculation. Once again, I don't really calculate. I just do a blot a day and assume that if I do a blot a day, that we're on time. All right. Anyway, anywho, so we discussed in the Mishnah that the lulav is not Deicha Shabbos unless in the Mikdash only on the first day. And so we'll see into more into the next parak. But we said at the end that at the end it says if one took out his lulav to Rishus Harabim on Shabbos, he's pater because he was mipnei shotzia berushus. He took it out. Basically, Rashi says basically he was tarid b'mitzvah. Tarid b'mitzvah. That was a line from Rashi. Right, but he wasn't carrying it. He was but this is even outside the mikdash. Now, Zok the Gemara. Bottom line, Rabbi Yitzchak Yontif. What does it say? Oh, Rabbi Yitzchak Yontif Rishon Shachak Shechalias B'Shabbos B'Shachak. Right, if it was on Shabbos nowadays, and he took out, right, because we don't do lulav on the first day. One takes out, he is potter. And Amar Abaye says Abaye Tav Membeis Abad Aleph Lo Yishanu Elo Shelo Yatzabo. Only if he has not fulfilled the mitzvah yet. He didn't take a lulav and esrog yet. Aval Yatzabo, but let's say he already fulfilled the mitzvah. He did lulav and esrog at home, and then he's carrying it to shil. Aval Yatzabo chayiv. Then he's chayiv because he's not tarid b'mitzvah because he already fulfilled the mitzvah of lulav. So the Gemara says, I understand. Nothing bad. Well, he's always fulfilled the mitzvah, right? Because if he's going to say do the mitzvah and shul, he's going to shake it and she'll make the bracha there. But once he picks it up, he has already fulfilled the mitzvah. So he's always fulfilled the mitzvah. So anytime he carries it, in theory, if he's carrying it, is after he fulfilled the mitzvah. He should always be chayiv. Chayiv
for what?
Chayiv for carrying on Shabbos. Sorry. Yes. On Shabbos.
Taking it out on Shabbos.
Right, because we normally don't do it.
Did he make a bracha?
Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, right? That's he filled the mitzvah even though he didn't make a bracha. That's still okay. But he was carrying it.
Usually, the fulfilling the mitzvah needs an action and the bracha.
Well,
so
the bracha is on the mitzvah, but you can still fulfill the mitzvah. In other words, if I put on my tefillin without making a bracha, I still fulfill the mitzvah.
Right.
No, it's not ma'akiv. It does a prevention, right? So I'm going to buy shehuvchu, right? And we actually sort of do this now. It was upside down. It was upside down, and therefore he didn't really fulfill the obligation, his mitzvah yet. He has to turn and right side up. That's the reason why we want to make the bracha before you do the mitzvah. But how do you hold it and do the mitzvah? If you already did the mitzvah, how do you make the bracha afterwards? So you upside down, and then you make the bracha, and now you fulfill the mitzvah. So too, he was carrying it upside down. So therefore, he never fulfilled the mitzvah yet. And Rav Amar afilu teimah shel hufchu.
That must be the origin.
Yeah, and right. That's what we see here, right? And when he's not holding it directly, he's holding it some sort of kli, right? Maybe he has his hands wrapped, he's wearing gloves. Asterisk box. Rava says you can fill even though you're holding it through something else, right? You can fill your obligations. That's derech kavod, right? If you're holding something which is special for the lulav. But let's say it's like on a plate or in a box, right? I take a box. Thank you, Brahmi. Last 15 minutes is worth it because I can use it for sure, right? If I pay my lulav and esrog in the box and I carry the box, that's derech bizaya. Therefore, I according to Rava, that would not be lekicha de davar acher shmei lekicha because that's derech bizaya. Amar Rav Huna. So says Rav Huna, Omer Haya Rav Yesi would say similar. Olas ha'ov shnitzas bein agafayim. Let's say there was an olas ha'ov, but the olas ha'ov is not consumed, right? Chatas ha'ov is, so he has an olas ha'ov, right? After it was they already did the shchita, they applied the blood to the mizbeach. So he finds it there amongst the other birds. Uksaver chatas ha'ov, and he thinks it's a chatas ha'ov. The and he eats it. So now one who normally eats a olas of is chayiv, right? Chayiv from Eli, I believe, right? So such a case, pater mekorban, mekorban meila, right? So he's pater from a korban meila. So my understand why? Because he's osek b'mitzvah, he's tar mitzvah, he's tar in the mitzvah olas of, right? And therefore, when he eats he thinks the chatzov is really also. Therefore, he's pater. So my kamashvalon the tabador mitzvah. Pater. Why are you coming to teach me that one who is tab b'davar mitzvah, he's involved in fulfilling a mitzvah, he's tired, he's thinking about doing a mitzvah, and he violates, right, an avera. So he's pater in a carbon. Hainu hach. That's our Mishnah. So he says no. Malazim just said hasam hu tab b'davar mitzvah. Pater hainu davar mitzvah. Maybe in our case where it says tab b'davar mitzvah, he's pater, is because he's actually going to fulfill a mitzvah. He's going to do the mitzvah of lulav. Over here, mitzvah of mitzvah over here, right? By eating the carbon of the chatas ha'of, which is not performing any sort of mitzvah, right? Ultimately, when you carry lulav, you're going to perform the mitzvah of lulav. So at least you did the mitzvah. But over here, there is no mitzvah ever being performed. So maybe over here, you might think one should be chayiv, right? Emelo, kamash malon, that he is chayiv. So Meisave, as we kasher Rabbi Yosi, Omer Hashek and Satam Sheinam Bevukar Kilchaso B'Shabbos Chayiv. One who goes ahead and there's an obligation on the seaboard to go ahead and offer a daily tamid, right? So one who goes ahead and he takes right from an animal that was not checked Kilchaso properly in terms of the right amount, number of days before, right? So he is Chayiv Chatas, right? If he shechted that one, it's Tzarich Tamid Achin, you need another tamid. So I understand. Over there isn't Tarad b'mitzvah. He's Tarad b'mitzvah over there, right? Shouldn't he be pater, right? He's thinking about, I have to go ahead and shech the tamid on behalf of the tzibur. So I took from the wrong animals, right? So shouldn't I be pater because it's Tarad b'mitzvah? No different than lulav. Samalei bar mina, no. Exclude that. In that case, the ha'am itamar Allah was said over there. Amar Rav Shmuel bar Chatai, Amar Rav Hamanuna, Saba, Amar Rav Yitzchak bar Ashin, Amar Rav Huna, Amar Rav. Right, it was all quoted ultimately in the name of Rav. Kagon sheviu milishcha shein bevukar. Now there's unchecked and there's unchecked. Okay. Now, if it's amongst the animals, which the Havamina was that there's animals that in this certain pen, some of them are checked. Have been for 4 days. Have been there. They check for moon, whatever it is. So then I took for the wrong animals. So that's tarvis. That you'd be punter. But if I took from a pen of animals which were completely unchecked, animals that has no shaychus to the mitzvah of tamid, then I'm not tarud in the mitzvah, right? There is no mitzvah on me because it's almost like it was almost like it was complete shekar of lamazid, as Rashi puts the term in, right? Rashi right by the wide lines. He says, since it's not considered to be tarud mitzvah because it's so far off the mitzvah, it's not even remotely checked. Since they weren't remotely checked, that's the reason why it's chayiv. If it was amongst the pen, which some has were checked, some weren't, and he took from the wrong group, whatever it was, then he's pater. But something which is no shaychus, right, which would not have the ability to be offered as a tamid, then in that case he would be chayiv because that is not considered to be tarud b'mitzvah.
Who's authorized to do that deeper? Did the korban who's doing the shechita or was bringing it to them there?
I guess ultimately the one who shechs
it. It seems from here it's the guy that shechs it.
Right, because we're talking about hashaychit, right. And I guess he's the one who also selects it, right? So Zak the Mishnah, Naya Mishnah, the last Mishnah of the parak. The Kabbalas Isha miyad bina, miyad baila, right? Like a good woman, right? She's helping her son, her husband. So she's allowed to go ahead and take the lulav from her son, from her husband, and put it in water on Shabbos. Now they used to go ahead. I guess a lot of people put their lulav in lulav or even a sorghum, right, in the fridge, right, to keep it cool so it doesn't go ahead and get bad quickly. So they used to put it in water. So a woman is allowed to go ahead and return it into the water on Shabbos. All right, on Shabbos we want to explain what the havamina is because she's not really chayeves. And says Rabbi Huda on that Nakuda, on that point, he says Rabbi Huda Omer b'Shabbos machzirin. There's different levels. On Shabbos, you're allowed to be machzir, right? You can go ahead and put it back in there. The Yontif on Yontif, Musafid, right? Since on Yontif, where we actually take the lulav and esrog, right? You're allowed to go ahead and take it. You're allowed to go ahead and add water in there, right? So a little more, quote unquote, malacha or being misaking kli, fixing the lulav. You're allowed to do a little bit more on Yontif, ubemoed, and a cholamoed, machlifin, and go ahead and you can go ahead and even switch the water out, right? That's a good thing, right? Switch the water out in order to help rejuvenate the lulav, aravas, and hadassim, and usually it's the ravas that need the most help. Fine. Yeah.
So, beginning of the Mishnah says that she could return Baksirasa Lamayim.
Right.
She could return it to the water on Shabbos.
Right. Why was it taken out?
Right.
On Shabbos. Right. So why was it taken on Shabbos? Because so it could be in the Mikdash, right? It could be in the Mikdash where there was the mitzvah on the first day, even the Mikdash. So he was bringing it back home or whatever it was. He was within the Tchum or that Yerushalayim, and he was coming back. He's at I don't know Yeshivat Kotel or whatever over there. Nativ, right?
He did it,
Corner.
yeah. Even if you weren't supposed to, you did it.
Right.
Let's say,
So
shoot, I did it.
Right.
Get back to my wife's sheet. Put it back.
Right. So no, but it's a good question. That was the question that's also right. That was bothering me, and it should be for anybody, not just the woman. It should be anybody because he should, just like the woman should, isn't chayiv. The guy's not chayiv either on Shabbos. Right? So it could be mitosh, fine. So the Gemara says pshita. It's obvious. So since a woman is not bas chiyuv, right? She's not obligated in the mitzvah, right? The mitzvah says she's on grama. So since she's out of bas chiyuv, he aim a low. It's like maybe I said she can't go ahead and receive it. So kamash blood that. She is shaykh to the mitzvah and she can go ahead and return and put in the water. And then, I skipped the last part of the Mishnah. I don't think I said that. Right? That's the quote from the Mishnah. And I think I skipped it before. But a kotet who knows how to go ahead and shake a lulav, he's old enough to go ahead and do the mitzvah dalminim, chayav belulav, right? There is an obligation, right? As Rashi says, chayav belulav, right? Lechancha midivreya, right? Sounds like lechancha. The father is obligated to go ahead and educate him, right? Midivreya, midrabban, right? So the father is obligated upon the son. It's not a chiyuv on the son; it's a chiyuv on the father to go ahead and educate him in the mitzvah of lulav nesog, which is why many people go ahead and purchase lulav nesog for their children. So the Gemara Tan Rabbanan Katan Chai Belulav, a Katan who knows who has the ability to go ahead and shake lulav is Chai Belulav. Lisate, if he's old enough, he knows how to go ahead and wrap himself, right, with clothes Chai B'tzitzis. He's Chai B'tzitzis. Lishmar Tefillin, if he's old enough to go ahead and basically watch his body, in other words, make sure he doesn't go to the bathroom while he's wearing his tefillin. He's old enough to do that, right? Then Lishmar Avi Lukach Tefillin, then his father has to go ahead and should purchase him tefillin. Yodea Ledabir, once he learns how to talk, Aviv Loim the Torah, his father should teach him Torah, Ukriyashma. And Torah, teach him Torah, Kriyashma, what's Torah? So Torah Mahi. So Rav Nuna, Torah Tzivilanu Moshe, Marashakilas Yaakov, right? Teaching the pasuk of Torah Tzivilanu Moshe, right? That the Torah was given over to Moshe, right? Then he gave it to the Kilas Yaakov. And Kriya Shema Mahi, what's Kriya Shema when he first learns to talk? Pasuk Rishon, that's the first pasuk. Fine. Hayadea Lishmar Gufo. If one who knows, a child knows how to go ahead and watch his body, Eichlin al Gufo Taharas. If he knows how to avoid tuma, right, not to come in contact with tuma, not to be an oil tuma, not to be around a mace, right, then if food touches his body, there is an assumption that the food is tahor, and you can eat it if a person's eating something but tahara. Lishmas yadav, if he has a higher capability, not only watch his body, but even careful with his hands, right, he washes the tiasadayim, right, lishmas yadav. Eichlin al yadav taras. Even something that comes in contact with his hands, and normally we have, hands of shnuyas, right? Hands, there's a certain level that we decree tuma upon hands. If a child is old enough to be careful in terms of what he touches, then you could even eat food that was touched by his hands. Hayadeh lishal. If one is able to go ahead, a child is able to go ahead and answer normally, right? Whether he's tameh or tahor. So if we ask him, hey, are you tameh or tahor? And he says, I don't know, right? In this case, he doesn't know, but normally he would be able to answer. He was suffix, right? So b'shusa yachid sveko tameh. If this doubt occurred in a b'shusa yachid, in a private domain, right? So then we say he is tameh, right? We learn those out. The halachas of suffix tuma, right? Tuma is if some sort of tuma happens, we're unsure about it, right? We learn from the classic case of sota, right? A sota, a woman is in seclusion with a man, right? If it's in private, right, then there is a reason of doubt, right? A reason of doubt of tuma. If it's in a public domain, right, then it's tahor. Then it's okay. We don't assume anything happened. So we apply the same thing when it comes to suffix tuma. Suffix tuma sure happens in Rishus Yachid. We assume it's tameh, and if it's Rishus Rabim, then we learn like the sota and it's tahor. So if when we ask the child, hey, are you tummy or not? He says, in truth, in this case, normally I don't know. So if it's Rishus Harabim say go tummy, then it's tummy. Rishus Harabim, but if it occurred in the public domain, then Sveko Tar. Then a suffix is Tar. 2 lines on the bottom. Hayadea Lifrois Kappa. If he knows to go ahead, if he's a Kohen, he knows how to duchen, right? Then Cholkimoi Truma Bebeis Hagronos, right? Then, as described by Rashi, that normally they used to go to the granary to go ahead and get their matanas kahuna. So normally we give it out to them, to the people publicly, right? But people are going to see a minor, they're going to see a cotton, and they're going to assume, oh, all ktanim get taharos. You can give them, right? Truma. So we don't do that. We don't want that. But if we know that he has the ability to duchen, and he's that old, then we can give him truma, but we don't give him a lot of portion over there in public. Rather, there's an amount given to the family or to his father that when they take home, he also gets a portion. He's allowed to eat from it, but we don't basically dispense to him in public. Right? And Hayadea, turn the page.
Because we're not sure if he's keeping himself up.
Right. Right, but normally that age is okay. And Hayadea Lishchait. If one knows, if a child knows how to shecht, then you can go ahead and even though he's not a baki in halachos of shechita, but he knows how to physically do it, then you can eat from his shechita and amar Rav Huna. However, no, they still have someone, an adult around. You need a mashkiach or someone around, then you can go ahead and trust the child's shechita. Yachol lechol kazayis dagan. If the child is old enough to eat a kazayis of dagan, of grains, right? A kazayis worth of grains. Then marchiking mitzuasa maybe arba'os. Then basically, if they can go ahead and eat, then at this point their waste, right, their feces and all that, one should not davar the halacha, right? Person shouldn't davar within dal ramos, right? Or if it smells, right, of an air. So therefore, if it's a child who can already eat the kazayis of grain, then his number two, one has to be marchik, one has to distance himself from. And Amrav Chizdav not just they can eat it over a period of an hour, it has to be within the time period that a normal adult can go ahead and eat basically half a portion of barley bread. And Amrav Chia Bered Rav Yava Ugodol Afal Pi Sheina Yachol Lechol B'Chalechas Pras Techsiv VeYosef Das Yosef Mitzvah. Let's say there's somebody for whatever reason cannot go ahead and eat this amount of grain right within a certain period of time. Nevertheless, when he gets older, when he's 6, 7, 8, around that, then his waist, right? His number two is his bowel movements. One does have the distance up because the pasuk says, right, when he's increased in knowledge, he's also increased in pain. I.e., when you get older, then the bowel movements are larger and and therefore one would have the distance more offensive, and therefore one would have to distance himself Dal Ramos from such an area. Right, and all those fathers who change diapers, they know I'm talking. Fine. Yachol lechol kazayis tzli. If a child is able to go ahead and eat a kazayis of roasted meat, then shecht it as a pesach. Then you can shecht for him a current pesach, right? Even a single animal. Shnar, the pasuk says, ish lefi achlo, right? Each one according to his eating. Since he can go ahead and eat, he's able to partake of a roasted kazayis tzli, right? A roasted, kazayis. Then we go ahead and shecht. And Rabbi Yehuda Omer ad sheyachol levara achila. Now, he has to basically be able to recognize food. Even if you go ahead and eat that, he has to be able to recognize food. What does that mean? Nice not serve is zakra, right? You give a pebble, right, a little stone that he knows to throw that away because that's not food. And that goes, but if you give him a nut, then he'll go ahead and he'll take it, he'll eat it. So basically, he can go ahead and decipher what is food, what is not food. So hajj and Allah, lulav, all right. Next pair. So that was you got a big steal, right? So now your Mishnah, Naya Perik, you were in charge. You were in charge. All right, Lulav B'Arava. Now start the next parak of Lulav B'Arava, the fourth. I think it was 5 prakim in Masechah Sukkot. Now the fourth and fifth. So Lulav B'Arava, Shisha v'Shiva. The mitzvah of Lulav, right, which we know is the Dalaminim in Arava, which we'll discuss in the Gemara, can be a potential of 6 days that you do it or 7 days. HaHalel, the Simcha, the reciting of the Hallel, and Simcha, and basically the to eat basar shlamim. On the base of Mikdash, we said Ein Simcha lebasar, right? So we learn over there that this mitzvah of Simcha.
Why does it say 6 and 7?
Because sometimes it's 6, sometimes it's 7. It depends when Shabbos is out. The Mishnah will explain. The Mishnah will explain. So Halav Simcha Shmona, actually the Mishnah explains, right? So he said Simcha Shmona. Those are, you always say Hallel on all 8 days. You always eat the Shalom Simcha, for also the Basar of the Simcha for 8 days. The Nitzach Hamayim is always 7 days. That's the first 7 days. It's not on Shmini Atzeres. HaChalil, right? The Chalil, the flute, which is used for the Simcha Space Shoeva, that was Chamisha. The Shisha, that was sometimes 5, sometimes 6. We'll have to see in terms of what that means. Fine. So let's see. Lulav, Shiva, Ketzad. How do you have Lulav 7 times in the base of Mikdash? Ketzad, Yom Tov Rishon Shechag Shechal Yes B'Shabbos. If the first day of Sukkot falls out on Shabbos, then in the Mikdash we go ahead and we take the Lulav because it's also a special pasuk of Yom Harishon on the first day. So the Mikdash, it overrides Shabbos, and we go ahead and we take the Lulav for all 7 days, right? Day 1, because it's day 1, even though it's Shabbos, and then the 6 days through the next Friday. So Yom Tov Rishon Shechal Shabbos Lulav Shiva B'Shar Kol Yamim. But if it falls out, let's say on a Tuesday, so you can still go ahead and take Yom Tov Rishon on Tuesday. You take it the first day. But however, when the 4th to 5th day rolls around of Sukkot and it's Saturday, then we don't go ahead and take the lulav then. So therefore, that year we're only taking the lulav 6 out of 7 days. Shisha, right? Arava. Now the Arava. Shiva is 7. Ketzad, how so? Yom HaShvi Shel Arava. So the big day, right? We actually refer to it as Hoshana Rabbah, right? Which we'll see later in Gemara. But so that's the number 1 day. That is Derech Shabbos. We have to do it. So if Yom HaShvi, if the 7th day Shel Arava Shechal Yes B'Shabbos falls out on Saturday, in other words, basically day 1 was Sunday. Okay, and therefore Hoshana Rabbah, the Arava, the big mitzvah of Arava, day 7 is on Saturday, is on Shabbos. We don't care. So therefore, you're going to do Arava every day.
So I'm going to be.
Yeah.
I'm going to go back a step.
Right.
Because they had a calendar at this time.
Right.
Yeah.
They knew that Hoshana Rabbah could never fall on Shabbos.
Right.
So why would the Mishnah even bring that up?
Right. So during times, I guess, before, when it was calculated per the moon, right? Then at those times, I think this is a question some of the footnotes we're going to.
No,
But
we learned in Masechtas Rosh Hashanah that they would purposely declare Rosh Hashanah on the.
well, they wouldn't do it because they didn't want
So
Yom
that
Kippur
they-
to fall out. Right? So there's really 3 reasons, right? We don't want Yom Kippur to come out on a Friday. We don't want Yom Kippur out on a Sunday. And we also don't want Hoshana Rabbah to come out on a Saturday, right? So, but in theory, right? In theory, I think this is a footnote. I'll look at the footnote after a share. So, but in theory, if it would come out on Shabbos, you do it for 7 days. Therefore, so Shabbos Rav Shiva. Then B'Shar Kol Yamim. However, if Hoshana Rabbah, if the 7th day falls on any other day, B'Shar Kol Yamim, then it's Shish is only 6 because whenever that Shabbos is of that year, you don't do the mitzvah of Arava on that Shabbos, even day 1. Mitzvah lulav ketzad. So how do they do mitzvah lulav on the first day? So Yom Tov Rishon Shechal Yes B'Shabbos. If Yom Tov Rishon falls out on Shabbos, some of the is everyone takes the lulav over there on Friday. And the chazal used to go and take and put them aside and organize them all. Eats them upon the bench. And the elders who wouldn't be able to go ahead and push around and grab the lulav, they would put theirs in the special area in the lishka, one of the chambers. They taught them to say, because we saw earlier that person has to own their lulav. So everyone should say, if someone gets my lulav, right, they take mine, I'll just take theirs, and they can have it b'matana.
But the first time
Lamachar, the next day, Mashkrimin, they all came. Ubain, Machazanim, Zorkin, they would come, they would throw them out to them. Then there's like a big fight. Everyone was grabbing, pushing, hitting, right? However, when Beis saw that it was like a sakana, he said, you know what? Go ahead and do it in your house. Let's just see the Gemara one line. We'll do one line in the Gemara. So why should it be usher to go ahead and do it on Shabbos, right? Even if Shabbos comes out on the third day of Sukkot, why? Amai tiltul b'yalmahu. It's only wood. It's only muksa. The lidchei Shabbos, and let's override. You have a mitzvah lulav. You have a problem with muksa. Let the mitzvah override a muksa issue. So Rabba says, Rabba, Gzeira Shema Yitalenu Biyadav. Perhaps he's going to go ahead and take it. The Yelech Eitzel Baki Lilmo to go ahead and bring it to someone to learn how to do it. The Avirenu Arba Dalaramas B'Shus Rabin. Then he'll go ahead and walk down Shus Rabin, and then that will be the violation. All right, we'll stop here. Everybody, everyone have a wonderful day.